Where are you calling from today, by the way?
The Republic of Armenia. And I'm not even in the capital. I'm in a little village of 1,800 people, about an hour and a half southeast.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to let you kind of tell your story and what you're dealing with, and then we'll ask questions along the way. I'm Alan Masters, and my friend Bob Just is here. So there's two of us here, and there may be a little delay back and forth betwixt us. So do your best, and we'll see what we can do here. Okay?
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Here we go. Hang tight and quiet on the set. We'll bring in the radio stations. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's roll. And welcome back to Hour 2 of Perilous World Radio. I'm Alan Masters. My friend Bob Just is here. And on the line with us from the Republic of Armenia, all the way around the world we go, is Lynn Wicks. Lynn says Christians are being martyred where he is. Can it happen here in America? Lynn, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Could you give the audience just perhaps a minute or so on yourself? Who is Lynn Wicks?
Thank you very much, Alan and Bob, for the opportunity. And greetings from the first Christian nation, Armenia. Who is Lynn Wicks? An ordinary person, 45 years in aviation. I was out of Australia and New Zealand dual national, but spent most of my life traveling and working internationally. And my last position was with the United Nations, working out of Bangkok. And currently contracted to the government of Singapore for special advice to their senior people.
You said something right there, the first Christian nation. Why did you say that? Give us a little background.
I say that because not very many people know about the background of Armenia. It's a truly ancient nation mentioned in the Bible, and of course, these people they're called the people of Noah. And I can prove it because just down the road, 800 meters from where I am, is the world's oldest winery. And of course, as you know, Noah bought the grapes from the ark. So these people have been persecuted for centuries for their Christian faith. This is an island of Christianity surrounded by people of a different faith. And for that, they have, as I said, been persecuted. The main thing to understand is that these people are indigenous to these lands, Artsakh and Armenia. Artsakh was the Armenian name for Nagorno Karabakh. You might have heard about it in the media. They existed 2,500 years or more ago. In fact, prehistorically, the Armenian people have been here for thousands of years. So this is a very interesting country.
Let me ask you, if you don't mind, I want to just spend a few minutes with you. And thank you for being on our Patriot Outreach segment. This is, and I'm not sure how you met Colonel Monaco. He's normally on, and he usually has a little diatribe in the beginning to explain things. What is your relationship with Patriot Outreach and our Colonel Monaco from patriotoutreach.org?
Well, I've been put in touch with Colonel Monaco through a mutual friend who we've been conversing about the horrors that have faced the Armenian people in the past few weeks. And he's been very kind enough to allow this opportunity to speak to the American people and people of faith and people who understand that injustice in this 21st century is not right.
Yes, I agree. Can you give us a little bit, because perhaps what has been going on in Armenia is being outshadowed by this obvious war going on in Israel right now. Could you give us a little background on what you've been dealing with and what the Armenian people have been dealing with?
Of course. Well, of course, the United States, after 106 years of prevarication, recognized the first Armenian genocide, which took place during and just after World War I. I have to say that the American people during that time were amazing, including the ambassador, Henry Morgenthau Sr., who alerted the U.S. authorities. Unfortunately, at the time, of course, during the World War I, there was a focus on the war. And this is actually almost history repeated because, as you can see with the Ukraine situation and now the situation with Israel, the neighbors, the Azerbaijanis, who are of Muslim faith, they have always taken advantage of the situation. And unfortunately, we have the second genocide that's just happened with 120,000 Armenian Christians, democratic nations, by the way, facing the, I would say, dictatorship of Azerbaijan and Turkey, have been forced to flee the onslaught of a military operation which has killed civilians and unfortunately committed many war crimes that have gone under the radar as these other conflicts have happened.
Wow.
Just one moment, if I could just mention,
please.
This is not just a small isolated conflict because unfortunately with the tensions very high on the border, I'm only 1.5 kilometres or 1 mile from the border where I am at the moment. This has the potential to spill into a much bigger regional war than even what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, with both Iran, Israel, Russia, the United States, all involved in this geopolitical sensitive area here.
You know, I'd like to ask you a question or help us to understand. A lot of people still have a positive view of, politically speaking, geopolitically speaking, of Turkey. But Turkey under Erdogan has changed radically in 15 years or so. You know, tell us about that.
Yeah, I agree with your perception and your analysis. It's unfortunate. I've been to Turkey many times, and you know, we should not have any dislike of peoples. It's the politics of the nation that we should question. So I'm going to make my comments in that light. I'm not directing my comments towards the ordinary people of Turkey. And I agree with you that the politics of Turkey is extremely divisive. I would go as far as saying it's genocidal. If you look right now, the news is being dominated by what's happening in Israel. But Turkey's busy bombing Kurds who not white of themselves, but you can see that there are civilians being killed, hospitals being bombed. And by the way, the United States installations in the northern Syria area were also under threat. The United States had to even shoot down a Turkish drone. I don't know whether you, you know,
I did hear that
in the past few days.
Yeah.
So there is an enormous potential for conflict, not just in that area, but also, of course, with our friends in Greece, Iraq, and of course, being a dictatorship in Turkey, you would not think that it will last the length of time, because here we have a dictator in Russia to the north, we have a dictator in Turkey to the south, and eventually one dictator is going to want to prevail. That's how dictators work. So I believe that it's a huge destabilizing factor, and I believe that the United States' appeasement of Turkey has been a miscalculation.
You mean in terms of Turkey being in NATO and that, you know, that kind of thing?
You could see that Turkey's pushback against the request by Sweden and Finland to join NATO on the ridiculous grounds that these two civilized nations had some terrorism intent. When you see in Turkey itself the secret services supporting ISIS, we know they did, and allowing the likes of Hamas to have passports. So if you look at all the information, you can see that Turks have been supporting Hamas. And so if there's anyone there supporting Israel in the United States, then they, by definition, should put a very big question mark over Turkey's actions when we see the horrendous death toll in Israel at the moment.
I see here's a question or a comment. It says, President Biden, are you blind to genocide? Is this something you talk about? I notice you have Straight Talk from the Homeland, a YouTube channel. Can you give us a little information where people can find out a little bit more about Lynn Wicks and what you are uncovering and trying to bring to light?
What I'm trying to convey to people, particularly in the civilized world, is the terrible paradoxes and hypocrisy that exist. So, for example, the United States, as leader of the free world, will talk about human rights and a rules-based order, right? We don't want law of the jungle as we see in Ukraine. We don't want dictators as we see in North Korea, for example. So when the United States talks like that, people they have hope around the world. They have hope of democracy.
All right. Hold on one second. We have to take a break. We're talking to Lynn Wicks. Straight Talk from the Homeland is his YouTube channel. We'll be right back with more of Lynn Wicks. Stay with us. Sorry about that, Lynn. We had a commercial break. We'll take it and come right back in. So as soon as you're ready, Patrick, you can let me know, and we'll continue on with Lynn. Okay, Lynn? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Let's roll. Welcome back. We're talking with, all the way from the Republic of Armenia, Lynn Wicks, who poses the question to President Biden: are you blind to genocide? And a warning to America. While we are all focusing on one war or the other, you might say, whether it be what we're seeing happening in Israel or anywhere else, there is a genocide that is going on in Armenia. So, Lynn, what is your warning to America after all this? I mean, I want people to do their own research on you and about you and Straight Talk from the Homeland. But what is the warning that you have for America?
Thank you very much again for the opportunity. My warning is that if you talk about democracy and you talk about human rights, you should mean what you say. And when it comes to the hope that, for example, that the United States and Europe gives to Armenia, which wants to transition away from the Russian sphere of influence, right? It was a Soviet part of the Soviet Union because the Russians invaded in 1920 and took over what was then a sovereign Armenian nation and gave away Armenian lands. But that's a different story. At the moment, the people here, I would say, 99% do not want Russians here. They don't want Russian bases. They don't want anything to do. And in fact, the Prime Minister has declined to attend or be part of any Russian alliance. Actually, Armenia has just joined the International Criminal Court, which means that if Putin comes here, he could be arrested in theory. So that's the transition that Armenia is, as a nation of only 3 million people, against this juggernaut of Russia, the bravery that it's shown. And yet I'm asking the question, where was the United States when these people in what we call Artsakh, or Nagorno Karabakh, the Russian name, where was the United States when these people, these democratic people, these Christian people, the U.S. ambassador arrived and said, she was a new ambassador, probably quite a nice person, but she said, well, those people can be part of the dictatorship of Azerbaijan. And we were all shocked, absolutely shocked. Wow. It would be like asking Jews to be part of Nazi Germany.
Right.
So,
well, let me ask you. You make a point that Armenia is a nation of 3 million people. And as you're probably watching on the news, we've had 8 million refugees, or whatever you want to call these people, coming across the borders into America. In other words, there are more than double of your entire nation have rushed our borders and come in. And in this warning to America, can you take that into consideration in your next comment?
Yes, I can, because I think, as I said, the rules-based order is there to try and keep a calmness on this planet, right?
Right.
This planet of self-interest and and things like that, where money controls everything. We all know it, right?
Right.
My wife, who's Armenian, one of the reasons I'm here, she took 4 years to become an Australian citizen. She went through the proper channels. I spent nearly 100,000 Australian dollars for her visas and her credentials to ensure that she went through the proper channels. Now, if everybody rushes the Australian border, which would be a little harder because it's a continent in the middle of an ocean, but nevertheless, same principle applies.
Right.
Rules-based order. When we have a genuine need, of course, refugees, should be looked after, as we have in Armenia right now.
Right.
But when people are breaking international order, then you're going to have chaos, and that's no pathway forward in the 21st century.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why we wanted to have you on was to just give people a window into other parts of the world that we are all of a sudden being made more conscious of by all these wars that are going on around the world, that the warning to America could be, or should be perhaps, there is a war going on right now, and we are being infiltrated here in America by these refugees or these
migrants, whatever you
or whatever you want to call them. They're calling themselves refugees or migrants. I don't know what they call themselves, but the reality is that most of them are military age young men, single, and you have to, for just a moment, listen to these people from around the world. Watch what's going on around the world. And Lynn Wicks asked the question to President Biden, are you blind to this genocide that is happening in Artsakh? Is that what it's called? In Armenia? Are you blind to it? And obviously he is, because they're also keeping it out of our news. Our news is being manipulated by money and power, Lynn, here in America, and it's almost like we have become like a third world country. The government controls what we eat, think, believe, and what we do in our lives. I was going to try and build a wall in a building that I own, and they said, no, you can't build a wall in your own building without permission. It's a commercial building. And I thought to myself, I don't even own the building. We are literally just puppets to this crazy world right now. Go ahead.
Recently, the likes of CNN, which was given millions of dollars worth of bribery money. I call it a prostitute agency, but it will not show the news because Azerbaijan is busy advertising on that channel. Same for the BBC. These are prostitute agencies which can be bought and sold.
Absolutely.
This oil and gas money coming from Azerbaijan. As for Europe, you can see Europe says almost nothing about these horrors that we experience here. I mean, we had to bury our neighbour's son, for example, from an invasion into Armenia itself. Right now, as I speak, the sovereign territory of Armenia itself has been invaded by Azeris, and it's all a bit concerning. But nobody will tell the news because of all the bribery that goes on from these oil and gas states like Azerbaijan.
Yes. Lynn, where would you like me to send people to find out more information about Lynn Wicks and what you're dealing with and what your country's dealing with?
Well, I would like to make the point that it's not about Lynn Wicks, it's about this country and its people.
I get it.
First thing. I'm just ordinary people.
Yep.
But you can find me on YouTube at Straight Talk from the Homeland. On Twitter, I'm on at OriginsD, ORIGINSD. So I'm quite active on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to mention, for the good folk in the United States of faith, we have had a number of wonderful churches there approach us in the last few days, offering to help these refugees that we're dealing with right now to rebuild. And I want to say to these refugees, don't give up hope of returning to your ancient homeland. You are the indigenous people.
Yeah.
I would like to not give up hope that the idiots in the State Department who have made terrible mistakes, like they made in Afghanistan,
right,
will change their minds and right this injustice and recognize this land and make sure that these Christians can return to their homes. I'm concerned right now that Churches are being destroyed as we speak. I kid you not. Every trace of Armenian cultural heritage is not just genocide of the people itself and war crimes. Every trace of Armenians is being exterminated from the area. And this has been going on for decades.
It's wickedness. And Lynn, I have a commercial break I have to take. Lynn Wicks, everybody. You can find him at Straight Talk from the Homeland, his YouTube channel. Thank you, Lynn, for giving us a window into what you're dealing with there. And thank you for helping patriotoutreach.org. We'll be right back, everybody. Stay with us. Thank you very much for, for just bringing this to light, okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're very kind. The Armenian people, not me, the Armenian people, thank you for that opportunity.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Bye-bye. Horrors around the world. We sit over here and have, tea and crumpets, as my dad might say. I've never had a crumpet, but I will say we sit over here in our comfort zone. But it's coming here.
Yeah, no, we're losing control of our civilization too.
Yeah, well, that's what it boils down to.